Well, we're the ones casting the final, and this is, I mean, historic is the word for it, really.
Yep.
North America versus Europe final, the two best teams performing at the tournament. And I actually love that it is North America versus Europe. I think back to the last 8 World Championships, the last 4 MSIs, across 12 major international tournaments, Europe has outperformed NA in 10 of them. This is round 13, and it feels like the first chance that NA could take a title.
It really does. I mean, Team Liquid have a very legitimate shot here of changing the course, right? I mean, it feels like for me, and I've been doing this a very long time, since pre-season 1 even, it feels like North America has been getting trash talked by EU. From our perspective.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I throw out something here, the competitive League of Legends scene, to me, started with EU NA trash talk. Before Korea even had a server, we were trash talking each other.
That's true.
I mean, it's super true. And it's actually just so insane that one of these two teams will actually hold an international title. Because for so long, no one would have ever expected, maybe one, maybe the other, but never would it be a competition between Europe and North America. It's insanely exciting.
Hey guys, we gotta get you over to the caster desk.
All right.
A battle for the ages is upon us as G2 Esports and Team Liquid face off in the MSI 2019 final. An EU versus NA matchup fans have waited on for years. You're getting a look at the teams arriving to the arena earlier today. The biggest best of 5 most of these players have ever faced down in their entire lives stands before them. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MSI Countdown, where for 30 minutes we look back at the insane series yesterday and preview the final until the timer reaches 0, and we go to Taipei for the opening ceremony. Now, you might ask yourself, how did we end up here? Well, to make a long story short, first, Team Liquid pulled off one of the biggest upsets in esports history by taking down the reigning world champions Invictus Gaming. Not to be outdone, in a thrilling series that went all the way to Game 5, G2 ended Faker and SKT's run towards the title to set us up for an EU versus NA clash today.
And this is 9 years in the making. This was the last thing that anyone thought would happen going into this tournament. We are on the foot of history being made right now.
And I'm so happy that yesterday's series went all the way to 5 games between G2 and SKT. We got to see so many highlight moments. We're getting one on screen now, you know, the two-man split push into Wonder, getting the Nexus in the end, classic EU fashion. And in the very end, we get a Baron called by SKT. The guys who are normally always in control, they were the ones who suffered here, and G2 managed to win.
And just in similar style, the way TL was able to overcome Invictus Gaming, the best team in the world, coming into this tournament and do so by controlling it and bringing it back to the team fights. I thought that was a terrific series to get us into now what is going to be, you know, that very heavy chaos style League of Legends that G2 brings versus, you know, maybe the more slow team fight style of Team Liquid.
I've heard that before. I feel like there's been a narrative before.
For me, it was just play your game. The fact that it was Skarner, Lux, that it was Syndra, Pyke, it was the fact that it was no longer about copycat. You didn't have to do what China and Korea were doing. You just played the Western style, and this is what we have.
Now, the two best regional champions in the world right now are EU and NA, and they look to square off against each other tonight. It is EU and NA. I don't know how many more times I get to say that in my life. Shox and Azael and Raz are on the ground in Taipei, and we'll be checking in with them throughout the day. Let's see what the atmosphere is like ahead of the final.
Thank you very much, Dash. Honestly, I could hear you saying that 10 times
Soak it up. Keep saying
over.
it.
EU versus NA, TL versus G2 for the MSI title. It's gospel. It sounds so good. But, you know, we got to go through the motions and think about where these teams started in the tournament and where they are now. And I do want to start with Team Liquid because we know they were built for international success, but it wasn't sure if it was going to come true. And I think from day one, on, there was one person on the Rift for TL who carried a lot of weight, and that's Impact. This guy had a fantastic tournament.
Impact has been wild. The group stage is the reason why they ended up getting to this point. Like, Team Liquid very likely wouldn't have gotten to the knockout stage to begin with if it wasn't for Impact's carry performances.
Yeah, I agree. And to me, the biggest thing is that he has defied expectation throughout playoffs as well as, in the finals. And coming into MSI, people had certainly been pretty vocal criticizing, his lack of ability to play carries. And, everyone was thinking this was going to be the weak point of TL. This is where they would crumble on the international stage against the likes of Wonder and the Shy. And yet he took down the Shy in a best of 5. And it was honestly incredible to see him performing to that level on carries.
Yeah, and I think on the other side of that is the LCS MVP, CoreJJ, coming in. We had very high expectations. To me, he started off a bit slower, but man, did he develop in this tournament.
He took over that Invictus Gaming set. He took down Baolan, and he was a major reason why they came into these games, his engaging points with the Alistar. He was such a dominating factor.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, it was the transition away from the Tahm Kench, which had had so much regional success for Team Liquid, and the realization that perhaps they needed more aggressive play from CoreJJ. In come the Alistar, in come the Galio, and in come, I think, one of the best series that any support has ever played against IG. I think that was pretty close to perfection from CoreJJ.
It was absolutely an amazing set by Team Liquid, and that's why they find themselves here. And they're up versus the LEC champions, G2 eSports. And when you say G2, you got to say FlexPix. You just have to emphasize once again that depth of champion pool that these guys play with, and especially the fact that they have so much to play with in a best of series.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they have so many picks, and they make all these picks their own.
That's
They are
intimidating.
masters of so many different champions. When you see something picked, you don't know if it's going top. Is it going bot? Is it going mid? Are they doing funnel? They have so many strategies, and they're impossible to predict, which makes them a nightmare to draft against.
Yeah, like, just taking a note of all of this, good luck for the Team Liquid staff in the back trying to really predict, because even if you went towards Game 5, SKT versus G2, like, it was the 4th pick coming through, and no one had a clue where the Syndra was going. It was tough. It's tough, and Team Liquid got to play this style. There's nothing you can predict going up against G2.
Yeah, and that also makes me super excited because Team Liquid has impressed us also so much on the terms of preparation. They said we knew how to take down IG. They don't skip a step when it comes to preparation. A guy that sometimes skips a couple of steps, I would say, on G2 is Caps. He finds himself in unfortunate situations at times, but more often than not, this guy finds himself in exactly the right place at the right time and destroys the enemy team.
Yeah, this is one of those unfortunate situations, but you get the best of him and you get the worst of him. I think he changes the way G2 plays. You don't tell him, you don't go in the back and say, play it back a little bit more, play it more reserved. You actually encourage him, you play with him, and you get more people diving alongside him.
Yeah, and I think he does make some mistakes, but the positive side you get with that is I would say he's the best mid laner in the world at exploiting a lead when he already has it, because he's so aggressive. He's willing to take risky plays because he trusts his mechanics, and 9 times out of 10, he's right. He's going to be able to play off plays like that.
Yeah, from a fan perspective, you just watch it and you're like, yes, I love to watch Caps because he always goes in. He always gives us a show. And I think that goes for every single player on the Rift today. I cannot wait to see all the players clash into each other and hopefully give us the full 5 games. We are going to take a quick break before we dive a bit deeper into the lane by lane, so stick around.
Harmony presented by MasterCard. Today, the best players in the West will battle on the Rift for one of the biggest titles in League of Legends. So let's break down the different matchups, starting in the top lane with Wonder versus Impact.
And the thing is this was supposed to be a stylistic mismatch. This was supposed to be Impact, all about the team fights. He sacrifices his resources, he sacrifices his own advantages, and he groups up with his team. While Wonder plays things like the Rise. He plays off into the side lane, the 1-3-1. But in reality, we're actually getting 2 team fighting top laners from both of them. It just kind of that extra edge that Wonder has, that he will go out to the side lane when it comes to a clutch moment. But I actually think we're going to see a lot more grouping up and a lot more of these plays from both tops.
We do know, however, that Impact is going to be the predictable one, where Wonder can still be the unpredictable. Like the Pyke pick, we've all seen it a few times now, but playing against it is going to be another thing for Team Liquid if it is left open. And knowing Wonder, there can be more things he's sitting and he's hiding until this final.
I also think that Wonder just straight up takes more resources than what Impact does in this best of 5. And what we've seen from Team Liquid is that they're able to isolate that top lane position and that they're able to get Impact in situations where he's kind of dragged dragging the top laner towards the team fight. He's making it not about the side lane. The top lane isn't being as volatile as some of the top laners want. And if this guy just went through the Shy, you know, not even the best top laner, but maybe the best player in the world, I don't think he's going to be all that worried going up against Wonder. This guy's already won a world championship for himself and looks like he's in very good touch at this tournament.
And I just want to highlight kind of the two different picks of both these top laners. It feels like the Nico and the Kennen are kind of really the go-to that Impact has been grabbing, whereas Wonder, it's about things like that Pyke and that Jace or the Ryze even. So these are kind of the slight differences between these two.
And I think what it shows is a lot of damage, kill pressure from Wonder, but actually a lot of initial big AoE CC when you jump into a fight from Impact. It's not about Impact being the carry. He's setting up the rest of the team.
Now, next up, we've got perhaps the most important role in the game right now, the jungle position in Xmithie versus Jankos.
Yeah, and I think this is the position where if you look at it, you're going to get probably the most crazy and different opinions about the players. There's a lot of people who absolutely love what Jankos can do in the early game, but there's also issues with consistency, and it's something that's been punished in the past. And for Xmithie, all the group stages, we were talking about wrong picks, underperforming, and then in the semi-final, he became a hero because he actually succeeded in the early game. He found, you know, Java and Rek'Sai and the Skarner pick to control Ning. And that was so important for Team Liquid because they need him to survive the early game.
And whilst this jungle meta has been dictated by the early game picks, I like what Jankos actually brings into the mid-late game for G2 potentially against Xmithie. If Xmithie goes towards something like the Sejuani, all of a sudden the Karthus is back on the table. Regionally, it saw so much success. It hasn't fit the tempo of this tournament, but I think that if Team Liquid make that mistake and allow Jankos to play towards his style, then he can absolutely take over some of these leagues.
I was a bit surprised to see Jankos pulling out the Skarner himself in his semifinal, thinking that might be a unique pick for Xmithie in this series. After all, it may be contested. In the mid lane, we've got an explosive battle between two-star players who joined their teams ahead of 2019, Caps and Jensen.
And listen, I've been the biggest Caps fanboy for many years. I think the way he plays the game is just so entertaining, and it's so hard to play against because he's constantly taking high-risk plays, and he has the mechanics to back it up. So it's very frustrating to deal with him. But I think Jensen is actually a little bit of the opposite. He's Mr. Consistent now. He will always, at minimum, go even in his lane. He will always scale into the late game and actually be a strong team fighter. So TL, they now know they can count on Jensen no matter who they're facing in mid.
I almost think he's kind of the X factor for TL in the draft, because you look at how one-sided this feels to G2 for their drafting, the flexibility, the creativity in terms of the champions that they can use. Jensen has proven that he can be that backbone. He can play those flex picks. Give him the Sylas, give him the Akali, and he can start popping off. And this was something that was really missing from TL's arsenal heading into this tournament.
And we saw what this matchup can look like from both sides during the group stages. Jensen coming out ahead in the last game they played, but can't forget how pivotal Caps was in game number one of these two teams. However, I think what has impressed me about Team Liquid is their containment style about mid lane. The fact that they're now willing to bring in Xmithie very early, that Core JJ will play things like Galio and Tahm Kench to have the ability to rotate up. So Caps needs to be very aware when he's looking for his plays today that he is not making it just against Jensen. This is a whole Team Liquid lineup trying to bolster the mid lane.
Yeah, luckily for G2, they got to watch those games. They got to see the weapon against Rookie. Caps, not a stranger to getting camped in the mid lane. His career started with him just getting shot down by enemy junglers. He's adjusted a lot over the last couple of years, and I still think he's the strongest weapon on this G2 lineup, and he's the one who will create most plays.
And it has to be mentioned that Caps has now made back-to-back international finals. Of course, Worlds just this previous year, now here at MSI, but he's looking to avenge his 3-0 defeat from World Finals this time around here at MSI against Team Liquid. Next up, we have Perks and Doublelift. They both have multiple domestic titles, but have never won on the world stage despite countless attempts to do so. And today, one of them will get to lift that international trophy.
They absolutely will, and I think Doublelift turned Liquid from this relegation team into now a legitimate world contender. This is a player that has just stuck at it for so long, and you have to admire how he's been able to keep up with his game. Pulls out the vein, late game scaling on the Kai'Sa, and we're just talking about how Caps might be G2's biggest weapon. Well, Doublelift definitely is the biggest weapon here for TL in these best of 5. I think he's a late game carry, and in this tournament, he has been able to do so consistently.
And I want to talk about the intangible in terms of like the mental game, especially for a guy like Doublelift. At MSI last year, when he was the guy who took down Uzi, pulled out the Caitlyn, went toe-to-toe against RNG in the lane phase and beat them, I said, this guy has fire. He has passion. You can see it when he plays that he's playing to win. And now that he's gone through Invictus Gaming here, he's made it to an international final. I feel like we're finally going to see Doublelift unchained, that he doesn't have that blocker anymore.
I think also it's safe to say Doublelift, he's the face of Team Liquid. Perks, he's the face of G2 eSports. He's the captain. He's been there from the start when they qualified into the LEC. And now he's role swapping so they can put in a mid laner like Caps. He's now playing mages in the bot lane when he needs to. He can play lane bull AD carries like Draven. He can also go for scaling, but it's not his strength. And that's the big difference between these two guys. If you're looking at late game team fighting, you take Doublelift on a traditional AD carry. But if you're looking for creativity, if you're looking for early plays, you go for Perks.
And if you're looking for mental fortitude, I think both of these players actually have it in spades. You know, you talk about the journey that Doublelift's been on, but Perks has really impressed me. He's had some shocking games and then bounced back into really impressive performances, even in yesterday's series. As you were mentioning, early game was not going well, and then the Draven pick all of a sudden comes out. He runs over the game.
Yeah, and he's experienced everything. He's been the most hated player in Europe after failed international tournaments, and now everyone loves him, and they want to see him lift the trophy.
All right, let's add in the second halves of each of these bot lanes, though. Core JJ and Mickey X standing side by side with these guys.
And I really loved Azael's point earlier about Core JJ, that this is a guy that comes across from the North American LCS, wins the MVP, does it on very negative supports like the Tahm Kench, like the Braum. Then yesterday just shows how he's able to have impact on Engage. This is, to me, the area that I get very nervous for TL, because I think they've shown a reliance on Core JJ's ability to start fights, whereas when you have a look at G2, every single member of that team is volatile, and I think that Core JJ has a huge task ahead of him today.
Yeah, I actually predict that will be giving attention to Core JJ, trying to limit his champion pool, or at least the engaged champions that G2 want to face him on. If he gets something like a Galio, like a Braum, I think it's so easy for him to turn the tides of a fight. His Alistar performance was incredible. If you can force TL onto the likes of a Varus or a Kench, I think that's what G2 are really aiming here. Make him be more of that defensive support and get rid of some of that playmaking ability.
And I think bringing this all together, Frosk, I want to return to a point that you brought up just a moment ago, which is the idea that for all of these players, they've now made it. They're here. And what I hope more than anything for this series is that they all play that way, that they all play unfettered, unchained in a sense, in the way that they attack this best of 5.
Normally, I say, turn the nameplates off, because it's always like the West versus the Giant East. It's always SKT. It's always fake. You're like, just pretend it's not fake, or just focus on yourself. You know these teams. Keep the nameplates on. You know exactly who you're against. Perks is saying, Doublelift, who's that? I can beat this guy. I faced him a million times. Doublelift on the other side is like, Perks, are you kidding me right now? You're a 3-month ADC. Welcome to my 8-year career.
I promise you, they're actually sitting in the lobby right now saying exactly that to each other. The G2 guys on stage are just constantly joking and laughing, and it means you can remove the nerves.
Hopefully those nerves are fully removed. Today, G2 or Team Liquid will put their name down in history as the 5th MSI champion. We'll be right back for more on that matchup, followed by the opening ceremony.
So a lot of people were really happy when we ended up making it to the World's Final last year. It was something that hasn't been done in a long time, and for that, a lot of fans were really happy for us. However, I was not that happy, because I want the legacy of winning. I want to be on top and stay on top. That's why, for me, it's not just enough to be a champion. I want to be a legend.
The opening ceremony presented by MasterCard is almost here, and as we gear up for the most important EU versus NA clash of all time, G2 versus Team Liquid, I've asked it every day of this tournament, but I know this prediction has more gravity than any I've asked before for the people on this desk. So who will win the MSI 2019 title? Spawn, we're going to start with you.
And Dash, the North American representative in Team Liquid that came into this tournament was not able to win MSI when they first came in. But this is a team that has shown growth. Their individual players have elevated. And what MSI has shown me so far is if you get a lead and head into team fights, you will win the game consistently. And in the wise words of the greatest North American president of all time, Benjamin Franklin, Team Liquid will win MSI 2019 3-2.
There it is. The North American Patriot spawn has spoken.
You guys didn't have an
Team
NA cast,
Liquid is
though?
going to
You got
win.
the budget NA cast.
3-2. I like the 5-game prediction, though. It means we're going to get plenty of action. Deficio, hit me.
I don't have a great quote from a.
Oh, well, then moving on to Proskeren, who hopefully has something in her arsenal. Now, all right, what's the thought here?
I am going with 3-1 G2. I think we had two different metas in the series. We had the get to late game in the TL series, and we had the snowball early game in the G2 versus SKT series. And I'm looking towards that one here, because I don't think TL are better late game team fighters than what SKT could bring to the table. And that was not a problem for G2 in 3 out of those 5 games when they had the early advantage. So I'm trusting in the early game in this one. I think they have the tools and the players to consistently get advantages, and then they can beat TL.
Not a problem. You won a best of 5 off a backdoor and a fumbled Baron, my friend. There were some problems going on there.
A lot of team fights won in that game. They won a team fight at the Baron. They didn't force the SKT to start it.
Proskeren?
Okay, I am also G2 3-1, but I do want to kind of talk about the two schools of thought that are happening here and this idea of team fighting versus snowball early game. And the reason why I picked 3-1 is because I have confidence that G2 will win the series, but I also have confidence that G2 will enter draft, that they will try to decide that they're going to match Team Liquid in a scaling 5v5 team fight scenario. And I think that will bite them, that they will be wrong in that prediction. But it's the fact that they have a massive versatile style with their champion pools, with how they attack the map, with the fact that they can, attack through the bot lane, attack through the mid, attack through the top, that's why they're stronger representatives for this series.
I love that you had to do grabs dirty, just the ones there, You just had to he's gonna end one.
I hope his tweet's ready.
Blame him already.
And look, I do think, and the reason I have this series so close is I think the solo laners of Invictus Gaming underperformed especially the Shy. Rookie played great, but they had a strategy for it. So what I'm looking for here in game 1, and the reason I think that this could be very, very close, is if Impact can go toe-to-toe with Wonder in isolation. If they can somehow drag Jankos towards the mid lane, towards the bottom lane, then I think that is the area that TL actually start trying to win. And that's how you generate early fights. There's more members down there, things like Dragon, and then the ability to change into Rift Herald has been crucial. And what I think G2 need to try and do is get Wonder ahead and then get people out of lanes. If Caps isn't in mid lane, if he's roaming top, if he's able to get access to the map, this becomes a very hard series for TL to win.
All right, well, some thoughts from my experts here, but we've got plenty more experts who have opinions, and I need more predictions for an EU versus NA final. So I'm going to ask for our friends in Taipei to weigh in.
Thank you very much, Dash. I know you usually abstain, but you know what? I'm going to break the mold.
There we go.
And nobody's going to be surprised. G2 Esports, I'm going to say more.
I thought you had DL.
3-0, baby. Listen, there hopefully will be more times, but I feel like there's not a lot of times where I'll be able to go all in. I've been very impressed with them through Europe into this matchup where they have so much flexibility and they seem unfazed, and I have trust in my boys.
That's fair enough. I think this series is going to be a lot closer than that, personally. I think that both these teams, they went even in groups. They took down monumental opponents in the semifinals. But for me, what the edge I think it gives to TL is the fact that they were able to contain opponents so effectively through mid-jungle 2v2, as well as Impact neutralizing top lanes. It's less about their dominance and more about the fact that these solo laners have so consistently gone even against the Rookie and Shy. And then I do think that TL, if you put Doublelift and Perks in this late game team fight where it's coming down to them, I do give Doublelift that edge. If G2 is the win, though, it's going to be about speeding it up and dominating the early game.
Yeah, I agree with all of that in terms of just the win conditions. For me, I have it as a 3-1. But I'm going to agree with Mr. Benji Franklin and Spawn at the desk there. So I have it actually for Team Liquid, just because for me, a lot of these members, all 10 members on the stage, really stood up. But who stood the tallest for me across the board has been Core JJ. And he's really identified what a support can do on the greatest stages. I'm not concerned about, the consistency for Xmithy no longer. And so in terms of how Team Liquid are coming into this one, in terms of team fighting, no questions. I think they match the skirmishing power from Invictus Gaming, and we're going to see the same thing happen tonight.
You know what? I absolutely love it. And I'm not going to lie, there is emotional investment here, right? You can't just throw that overboard. And I think that is also the key to the two teams that we're seeing here on stage. They have so much riding on this on each side. If we only have to pick a couple of the storylines, Perks, he's been there so many times. Caps to international finals in a row. Doublelift, a struggle for seemingly his entire life.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that at the top of the show talking about this UNA rivalry, that it's existed since before season 1. To me, the most exciting thing about this chapter of it is it's no longer UNA fighting over table scraps, trying to be the next best team behind Korea. They are now fighting to be the best in the world.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, I think back to Worlds last year when we thought Fnatic versus C9, that was a flash in the pan. We were never going to see that again. But what if we have to reframe it? And if that is the new reality? And I think Team Liquid and G2 Esports are going to prove that today.
Yes.
They're going to go toe-to-toe and leave it all on the Rift.
The game is changing. The meta is changing. You saw it at Worlds. MSI is going to be that stage for us to see it go ahead.
Yes, it is. And you know, this is it. You can now analyze whatever you want. But in terms of that, the players hopefully will now be able to drop that all, right? They have to have their eye on the prize.
Exactly. It's performance on the given day. When all the pressure is mounting here on these two teams, it's who will step up, who will make that big play and make it happen, not only for themselves, but for their team and for their region.
Indeed. We are pretty close to the opening ceremony. Under a minute now. We can see that everything's getting fired up there. And I just think it's absolutely lovely that we're going to see the 5 players on each team step onto that stage. And hopefully we'll be able to read off their faces that they are excited because this is history in the making in Taipei at MSI.
You can hear from the fans here too. It's split across the board from the G2 fans and Team Liquid fans. They made their way over here to the Pacific.
That they did. So long in the making for G2 Esports, for Europe, a 3rd straight international final. Is this the time, or is it Team Liquid's time? Is all that hard work finally going to pay off for every single person on that roster and everyone supporting them from both sides? It is time to meet our players, Team Liquid and G2 Esports, and watch our opening ceremony.